Hey, Cypher here. Today's Memorial Day, so I thought I'd talk about it. I didn't really know this until I started doing the research on it, but apparently Memorial Day is actually quite controversial. Mostly it's to honor those who fell in war for our country. So how could politics get in the way of such an honorific day? As with anything, you have to start off with the beginning. Memorial Day started off being called Decoration Day. It grew out of small groups during the Civil War in the South, specifically, going and decorating graves of fallen soldiers, mostly Confederate soldiers. As the events grew larger and larger, they started having more and more impact. Throughout the 1860s, it was on various days, and it grew to be nearly a national holiday all on its own. By 1868, a man named John Logan declared Decoration Day to be May 30th throughout the entire nation. What's particularly interesting about this John Logan guy was that he was the leader of what was known as the Grand Army of the Republic. It was a veterans group for Union veterans, not Confederates. So in the wake of the Civil War, a Union veterans group declaring Decoration Day to be a particular day throughout the entire nation didn't go very well for a lot of the Confederate people who could remember pretty well only 3 years after the fact. So a bunch of southern states opposed Decoration Day vehemently. They saw it as a northern holiday, so they had their own Confederate Decoration Days. These southern states made their days particularly well known by going out and decorating only Confederate graves at mass grave sites for particular battles that happened during the Civil War. In many of these graveyards, Union and Confederate are buried right next to each other, and they would only go out and decorate the Confederate graves. Now, 13 states still have Confederate Decoration Days. The term Memorial Day has taken over, but it's pretty much still the same deal. They honor Confederate dead. And in fact, 2 of those 13 states weren't in the Confederacy at all. Maryland and Kentucky have Confederate Memorial Days for some weird reason, even though their militias fought the Confederacy. But after World War I, and especially after World War II, the whole fight over Civil War dead and that kind of ceased to be a big issue. Although many Southern historians tend to bring up what is called the lost cause. The rest of the world doesn't give a damn, really. But the southern states have continued to hold it just as a traditional thing. Progressively, it became more and more known as Memorial Day, and in 1968, it was declared to be Memorial Day as well. But something else happened in 1968. They solidified the date for when normal Memorial Day would be held to what it is today, the last Monday in May. Before that, it was the 30th of May. Now, this change brought up even further controversy, which still rages today as well, but with people who really matter as opposed to Southerners complaining about Northern aggression or whatever the hell they want to complain about. The people who are lodging these new complaints are the Veterans of Foreign Wars, otherwise known as the VFW. They're one of the largest veterans organizations in the US, and they have a legitimate gripe about this change. You see, the move to it being a Monday off, as opposed to it always being on the 30th, was designed specifically to get workers a day off, as opposed to it being a significant day. Even though May 30th didn't really have any significance in and of itself, the VFW saw this as demeaning the day's significance, because it's not about getting a day off. It's about memorializing American dead. Sometimes Memorial Day is just merely meant to be the beginning of the summer and is a day to go out and barbecue stuff. But that's not what the day is about. It's about going out and decorating the graves of fallen soldiers and honoring their memory. And you also have to remember what was happening in 1968. The Vietnam War. As the war raged, this kind of measure happening to the most auspicious of days for veterans was harsh to say the least. So 100 years after Decoration Day was actually declared in 1868, by 1968 it was created as Memorial Day and the day that we know it. It had been nationalized and solidified in that time, but not without controversy. So while you're here, subscribe to my channel. And if you have any thoughts on this subject, leave a comment. I'll see you next time.